welcome back to my channel, Manga Hoarder. My name is Laura, and now I'm doing part 4? Part 3? Part 4? I don't know what part I'm on. I've gotten confused. But the next part of Q&A answers, I had just shy of 90 questions, or 90 people submitting questions. Some of you submitted many, so it's taking me some time to get through this. So there are a couple of videos preceding this. If you're interested, you should go back and check those out as well. But I'm just going to get right into finishing off these questions. I have just over, just shy of like 2 full pages. So we'll see. There might even be another video coming after this. I don't know at this point. So at any rate, so the first question is, what manga concepts are you tired of seeing, and what are some new concepts you would like to see? I don't know what I'm tired of seeing. I certainly, there's a lot of manga that's being published now that's coming over that I'm not interested in at all, but I'm also not buying it, so I don't really care too much. But there's a lot of like shonen isekai manga and such that I genuinely have zero desire or interest in reading. So I'm kind of tired of it, but at the same time it's like it doesn't affect me because I'm not reading it. I am really, really tired of at least in romance manga, I'm really tired of the third wheel in the relationship, but only because that third wheel is always used, or always believes they have some entitlement to the love interest, believes that because they knew that character beforehand that now they can stake their claim, even though that character's obviously not interested in them. So I'm really tired of these like really aggressive third wheel characters in these romance manga. It's very tiring and very irritating, and it doesn't do anything because apart from one time in manga, I have never seen that character ever end up with the hero. They're just there to cause some tension. The only time that I've ever seen that work for anyone is in Peach Girl. And again, they were intentionally trying to draw a wedge. They weren't actually interested in the guy. So that one at least is sort of like a little bit different. I really hate that aggressive third wheel. But what are some new concepts you would like to see? I don't know what's new that I would like to see. That's something I would really have to think about for a long time. Maybe not a manga concept, but I certainly am interested in seeing more history. I'm certainly interested in seeing more non-fiction or essay manga. I'm interested in seeing more historic manga, or manga that was just sort of written before a certain period. Maybe a concept that I really like that I don't see enough of are horror and shoujo, because from what I can tell, a lot of really hardcore shoujo readers love horror. It's a strange mix, but for some reason those two things seem to go together. Shoujo horror, the few that I have read, are some of my favorite things to read, so I would love to see that. It's not a new concept, but it's certainly something I'd love to see more of. What is your prized possession in your manga collection? I don't know that I have any prized possessions as far as manga goes, because I feel like everything is replaceable. But the one thing that I think is sort of irreplaceable would be the color guides that I bought. So I have 3 pages from the color version of the Akira manga, the color guides that were used then to publish the manga in color in English. So those were from like 1984. So I have 3 pages from that. So I think that would probably be my prized possession, because, you know, if they are destroyed, they're irreplaceable. What's the best way to find new manga series to read on a budget? Good question. Have you tried your public library? They're your first place to go. If you haven't done that, try your university library. Because if you have any sort of courses on Japanese pop culture at your university, they invariably will have some in their library. You should be able to, even if you're not a student there, go and read the books that they have on shelves. You might want to try going on or getting yourself hooked up with like the Shonen Jump app, which is like $2 a month-ish. Very reasonable for on the budget, and they have lots and lots of manga in there you can read. Or you might want to try out some sites like Crunchyroll, I think, has manga. Another place to try out manga is really just to go to any website like Kodansha or Viz or Yen Press. Any place that actually distributes legally digital manga will usually give you like a chapter or two sampler that you can read to try it out before you get into buying it. So those are good places to go. But yeah, my first defense would say go to your library, because at least these days a lot of libraries are venturing into manga. If your library doesn't buy manga, you should be requesting frequently manga series so that they start to get the hint that people want manga. If you had stopped reading or watching one genre, which one would you pick? So if I'm just picking one genre that I never read of again, I would go for harem, because I really dislike it. Do you or have you had any pets? I do, and I have. If you would like to get one in the future, I always would like to get more. I have bunnies. I'm obsessed with bunnies, even way more than I'm obsessed with manga. I love bunnies. And I'm not allowed to look on sites that, you know, sell bunnies or pets or anything like that, because all I want to do is have more and more bunnies. And my bunnies, they really could use a husband, and then I could have many bunnies. And that sounds very nice to me, because bunnies are the best. They're so floofy and so sweet, and yeah, I don't know how anyone wouldn't want like tons of bunnies just everywhere. They are kind of poopy, but they're floofy too. My little bunnies are floofs. What is your favorite animal? Oh, that's bunnies. And do you enjoy any manga or other works of fiction featuring that animal? Bunnies are surprising frequent visitor in manga, because you have the legend of the bunny that lives on the moon making mochi, so you'll get a lot of that moon and bunnies. Like in Sailor Moon, the main character's name is Usagi, or Bunny, and like all of the motifs in it are bunnies and moons, so you have a lot of bunny moon themes. But there's also a fascination with Alice in Wonderland, so you're going to get a ton of things related to Alice in Wonderland, like Alice 19th has a character that transforms into a bunny, and they can go into the wonderland of people's minds. So there's lots and lots of manga that feature bunnies. But one in particular, you know, I think my favorite animal manga is actually Kinoku Inu, Mushroom Pup. I'm not a dog person, but I love that manga. If that was bunnies, it would be even better. But it's not. Mushroom Bunny would be pretty good. Kinoku Usagi. Out of all your manga reading friends, who do you most enjoy discussing manga with, and why? The answer is pretty clear. My sister. Because she's the only one who has my history and knows my tastes maybe even better than I do, and understands manga the way that I do. So we can discuss manga at length. I don't think I can do that with anybody else. I can talk about manga sort of superficially with a lot of people, but I can talk about, like I really can talk about manga with my sister. And so it really helps having her live in the same house as me. What age did you first start getting into anime and manga? I got into anime when I was about 14, 15, and I got into manga when I was about 23. Next is, were you criticized by family or friends because of your interest in it? I don't know that I was criticized to any sort of certain degree. I certainly was questioned. Maybe, I don't know. I remember my mom saying, "Where did you come from? Like, what's wrong with you?" But it's like never to the point where it was like, you're doing something that I don't approve of. Yeah, so I've never really had to deal with that. I might have had a couple people make some comments. And actually there was an instance when I was in high school, a couple of kids younger than me in school, they actually pulled me aside and tried to give me a lecture about the satanic imagery in Sailor Moon. I went to a very, very, very small / conservative school, so it's not surprising that they both knew interested in Sailor Moon and had this feeling, but at the same time they were expressing opinions that weren't their own, and so they had no way to actually defend themselves when I stood up to them. So I knew the form and the medium already so well that they basically ran away with their tail between their legs. That was the one instance I think that I can come up with. But yeah, if you are confident in the thing that you like, you will meet very little resistance, I think, as long as you are on the right side, I think. I hope. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about the whole approach, but I've never really come across much resistance. Nor have I cared. I think maybe that was the other thing. I could care less if someone didn't like something that I liked, because then, so what? You're not me. Do what you want to do. And then, as a fan of both anime and manga, how do you balance your time for important daily activities? I don't. I am the worst at balancing. I'm the worst balancer. I'm really unbalanced. But I do use a bullet journal. I do kind of schedule some of my time, and then I make priorities for like a month or 4 months, and I'll say these whatever months I'm really concentrating on something specific. And then when that activity is done, during that time, then I can go and read manga or whatever I want to do. So right now, I'm really, really unbalanced because my main priority is reading, or is studying. So I study for an hour, I have to make dinner, I may or may not clean, and then it's sort of like just before I go to bed, then I can read. So I'm not reading a whole lot, but I'm also not doing things I should be doing, like chores. That sort of gets left to the weekends if I can. But I still, yeah, that's something I still struggle with. What made you decide to start getting into anime and manga? I don't know that there was any sort of decision at the beginning to it, except for that it was interesting and new and different. And when I watch TV or cartoons or movies or read books, I always can predict the ending, or I always could predict the ending. Even in like mystery shows, I would know what the plot outcome was very early on in the movie. And I'd had people actually like comment to me like, how did you know that already? Because I would just say it like out loud, oh, something or other is going to happen. And then it would happen at the very end of the movie. Like, how did you predict that? I don't know. I just started to feel that media was very predictable. And then all of a sudden here comes this thing and it's new and I can't predict it. And it was fresh and interesting and different. And then there was this whole wide world that opened up. So I could study and look at anime and start to really enjoy the stories, but as well as like dissect what it meant and where it came from and all of these different things. And so I went down different paths of interests as I've gotten involved in this hobby. So it really was just sort of the fact that it was new and different from anything that I'd experienced before, but it was also fun and interesting, so it captured my interest. Next question is, how do you prioritize spending money on your hobby as opposed to other important items? I am going to make a video about this as well, about how I prioritize, but genuinely I pay my bills first, and then I put whatever's left over into my hobbies. But I have a very specific system where I have a savings plan set. I pay all my bills from my savings. Then I use whatever I've gotten paid, pay myself. So I pay all of my savings accounts. If there's money left over, that will go into, I have an additional separate savings account for comics only. If I have money in that comics budget, I can buy comics up to that value. And that includes like any comic book, any novel, any book, any nonfiction. All my books are in one particular bank account, but I have a separate bank account for that. But everything else gets paid first, so it's very much my very last thing. And sometimes I have a lot of bills and I can't put money into my comic book account. And sometimes I have very few bills, and so I put a little bit more into that account. So it really just depends on my bills for the month. Next is, what's the oldest manga you own, and when did you first start collecting manga? So the oldest manga that I own, probably at least like in the digest or tankobon volumes, would be My the Psychic Girl, because I think my publication is from 1984 or 87. I have the Mysterious Underground Men in my collection, but I also have the Four Immigrants manga, which was published in North America, and that one comes from the 1904, so that one's pretty old. I also have this title here, which is from 34 to 35, so Tankuro, but I think maybe like the oldest published thing that I own that's sort of manga is the 1965 Astro Boy comic from Key Comics, but again, not manga. It was not made by Tezuka. Who is your favorite manga or anime character of all time, and why? That would be Amelia from Dr. Slump, because I love her and she's the best. There's no reason. You just have to read or watch her and you will understand. Are you planning to go to Japan? Yes. I am hoping to go in 2023. It'll be sometime. I don't know if it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but I am starting to put some money away for that, as well as studying for that. Next question is, besides Genshiken, what is one manga series you frequently see yourself returning to, either by rereading or just having it on your mind? Why does it keep calling you back? Is it for nostalgia or something else? So Genshiken is interesting because I think I read it a lot more in the past, like when it was a little bit newer. I don't read it quite as often now, but I do have manga that I return to fairly frequently. Red River, obviously, I read every year, which I probably read more often than Genshiken. I reread From Far Away all the time because it is a very, very fast read. Same goes for Magical Miracle. It's one that I reread all the time. I just like the characters and I like how fast it is. Mostly I think the series that I reread are very light and very short, so they're just like super happy, not a lot of tension, and they're over really quickly because I just want something kind of more entertainment, more just sort of like to, I don't know, make me feel more relaxed or something, put me in a good mood. So that's sort of why I pick those kind of titles. But there are more, and I think I will make a video on that as well, so I'm waiting. Next is, do you like light novels? No, not particularly. In your opinion, what are some overrated or underrated manga series? Overrated? Definitely Bakuman. It is not that good. And I think it gets way overpraised and over-recommended to people. As far as what else I think is overrated, Promised Neverland I thought was overrated. I read the first volume. I didn't really feel much for it. Feels like a concept piece and it feels like something I wouldn't enjoy a second read. So I felt overrated. My Hero Academia, again, felt overrated. Apart from the cover design, I didn't really feel anything for that manga. But I think Shonen Jump manga really just doesn't appeal to me much these days anymore. As far as underrated, I'm going to go for anything by Osamu Tezuka. As much as he's super popular, I don't think anybody's reading him. At least not in English. And there's tons of stuff out there. And even though his writing isn't modern and maybe doesn't have a modern message, there's a lot of value to his manga and I would love to see more people reading it. how have your tastes in genres changed over the years? I don't think that they've changed a lot, except for that when I was first getting into manga, I certainly wasn't experimenting. I was just picking things that I thought I would know that I would like, so things with very cute covers or from anime that I was already familiar with. And it's a good way to, you know, get acclimatized to manga, you know, pick things that you know or are familiar. But it wasn't until I started going to some of these secondhand sales and picking up things that were just cheap that I realized that there's a lot more to manga here. And it was actually an eye-opening experience. You know, I ended up buying things like Uzumaki at a really cheap sale because they were, you know, maybe $1 or $2 at an anime convention. Didn't look like something I would like at all, and certainly wasn't a title I would have picked up any time before that, except for that it was cheap. And, you know, I love horror now, thanks to series like that. So yeah, I definitely have moved into just sort of like more broad, but I still like the series that I always liked. I think I'm a little less tolerant of like a high school romance, just because I'm so far removed from that now. So it does get a little tiring, depending on what the situation the characters are in. Like if it's just sort of cutesy high school angst, it's a little tiring unless there's something else a little more to it. So I am more kind of inclined to series that are drawn or written for older audiences, but that's just also because I am older than when I started. And another question about good shoujo for someone who reads mostly shonen. I think a title that I've heard a lot of shonen readers like is My Love Story. This is a story about sort of a not atypical romance between the big kind of gorilla-like boy and the very cute girl. And so it is really more, I think, the guy's story, the guy focus. So that might appeal to you. But it is hard to get away from shoujo and romance. Romance and shoujo are very much highly linked together, so there aren't a lot. I think one that might be interesting is a title called Blank Slate. It's a 2-volume series, and it is about a character who is, I think, amnesiac and maybe like an ex-spy or something like that, but there's some intrigue and violence and action in that one, I guess. So that might appeal more to like a shonen audience. Just looking around my room here and thinking what would be good. There is a shoujo densha otoko, which is pretty good. That's this one here. There's 3 that were published. One was shonen, one seinen, and this one is the shoujo manga. And this one is quite good. It's a short volume. It's about a guy and a girl who train. When the girl is being sexually harassed, the guy stops him. He's a super otaku. And she's sort of, she's definitely not. She's sort of his opposite, but opposites attract in this manga, and it's just a very cute relationship that they end up having. What series in your collection have you read through the most number of times? That would have to be my shortest series. So I can bet you that it's going to be one of these 3. Backstage Prince by Kaneko Sakurakoji, which is about a girl who falls in love with a kabuki dancer or actor, who of course is shy around people or really doesn't like being around people. Or it's a Lapis Lazuli Crown by Natsume Kawahara, which is about a girl who is a apprentice magic user, falls in love with a prince in disguise. Or it's going to be Beastmaster by Kyosuke Motomi, which is about a girl who really loves animals, and one day a wild boy, ends up in her class who is just like a beast, and she tames him. So one of these 3 series, they're all 2-volume long. They're all really cute, and I like the writing in them for the most part, but they're also just like really nice, satisfying, self-contained, quick stories that kind of just delivers exactly what you want when you only have like an hour and you want to read a whole series. What was your least favorite manga series you've read? not necessarily a series, but it's a volume of short stories called Anomal. That was one of my least favorites. Have you or do you ever regret buying manga? Yeah, all the time. It's sort of a slippery slope. Like once you get to a certain point, you have to kind of decide, are you going to just keep going, put the pedal down and just keep moving forward, or you can put the brakes on. And what does that mean? I'm so entrenched in manga that it almost is a pressure to keep buying more manga, except for that I also really like manga. So I can, put the brakes on slightly and I'll, just collect bits and pieces here and there. But sometimes the pressure of having a big collection is overwhelming. It's not everything it's cracked up to be. How much time on average do you spend reading manga per week? On average, I would say 1 to 2 hours. Not a lot. Do you agree that manga is solely for personal entertainment? Oh yes, I like this question, I remember. Do you agree that manga is solely for personal entertainment purposes in the sense that it is never taught or studied in schools? I completely disagree. Also, manga is taught in schools. It is just taking its time to get over here. Yeah. I wouldn't read manga if it was purely entertainment. It would be an easy thing for me to get rid of. But because there's more to manga, there's more to learn about manga, there's more to learn about either the topics that are brought up in manga or the culture that creates manga or, everything surrounding manga. There's something deeper to explore. I can look at the art, I can look at the artist, I can do more than just read, enjoy it, throw the book away. If that was what manga was, it has no purpose in my house. It wouldn't serve a purpose for me. So for me, manga is not pure entertainment. There's a lot more to it. I am entertained greatly by study and exploration. But yeah, no, there's a whole lot more. It's not just personal entertainment. And as far as it being studied in schools, since I have been in university, there have actually been programs which are cropping up at my university, which I am so annoyed about, that actually teach Japanese pop culture, which actually have students reading manga and talking about it. There are always, or have always been, or at least for a long time, schools that taught how to draw manga in Japan. And comic book history and comic book academia has been around for a while. It's still kind of fresh, but there's always something worthwhile to explore and read and study. So maybe it's not being taught in the high school level. I don't know what people are being taught at high school, but it's certainly being taught at higher levels. So yeah, there's definitely a value to manga besides entertainment. And personally, entertainment is sort of the least important value, in my opinion, to anything that I buy. If it's just sheer entertainment, I have something else I could be putting my money towards. And then that's sort of a fill in the blank. So which is the most expensive manga you own? Probably volume 5 of what's it called? Battle Royale. Except for I didn't pay for it. It was given to me. Which is the rarest manga you own? I'm not sure. Maybe the 1965 floppy of that Astro Boy comic. What is the oldest published? Probably again the Astro Boy comic. I don't think we have anything published too old that's in Japanese. Some of the volumes in Japanese are older than our oldest volumes in English. Like I do have Dr. Slump in Japanese, which were published in 1980. So I do have some from then, but I don't think I have too much older than that. in my collection. I'm not entirely sure what my oldest is. Are you satisfied with the current level of popularity and or perception of manga in your country or the world? Yeah, I'm fairly satisfied. If it was any more popular here, the books would come over so fast that I wouldn't be able to handle collecting what I wanted to collect. It's already a little too popular, in my opinion, because I want to be able to afford all the manga that I want. And a lot of manga is coming out now because it's so popular and I can't afford it. So I think it's a little too popular here. As far as perception, I think the perception is not geared towards manga in general. I think it's geared towards comic books as a format, and you're always going to have an argument about high art and low art and what is art and what is literature, and people trying to define these things, and people trying to police sort of or you know, censor readership. All of that stuff is going to continue on. It's just that comic books, particularly in North America, had a really rough start because they fell under persuasive measures against morality, and so really has been hanging on to this wrong perception, in my opinion, of what comics are. And then it kind of, because of that censorship, that really harsh censorship, of course there was a birth of sort of immoral comics, or these underground comics, and so it became kind of the thing almost that it was feared to be. But I'm satisfied with the level of popularity and perception because there's still a ton of people who are reading it. Yeah, there's a lot of people who look down on it, but those aren't my people. So I don't know, I think comics are winning. How did you get into manga and what made you want to collect so many manga? I got into manga because of, show it again, Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. And I think I've told my story a little bit. But why did I want to collect so many manga? It was out of necessity, because when we started buying manga, it wasn't available. The only way to read it was to buy it. And so we did. I'm also a collector by nature. I love collecting things. I've always had collections of things. So collecting manga is sort of a no-brainer for me. I just wanted to own them and read them. I mostly just wanted to read them, but I had to own them to read them. It sort of just happened. The collection just exploded at some point, and I don't know when that happened. But all of a sudden it was bigger than I was able to read. So I don't think that was a conscious decision to have so many. It just happened. Next question is, how many books do you have? And then also by the same person, how many manga books do you have? I don't know how many books, like novels or nonfiction, that I have. I don't have as many books as you would think, because when I read a book, unless I plan on rereading it, or I think that it's got something further to say to me, I will get rid of it. So I actually don't hang on to books or novels very long. So I actually only have about 2 shelves of novels. I probably have about, or sort of kind of like modern-ish novels, I probably have about 3 shelves of classics that are mine. So that's what, 200, 250 novels. And then I have probably like 2, 3, 4, 5. I might have like 100 to 300 nonfiction books, but most of those books are now like boxed up, so I wouldn't even, like, they don't really feel like they're part of any sort of collection. And then as far as manga goes, I share this collection, and about half of it is around like close to 3,000 volumes, 3,500 volumes, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know the exact number. How do you organize and take care of your manga? My manga is organized by where it fits, and then alphabetically. So depending on how tall the manga is, it'll go on specific shelves, and then all of the manga like as you can see back here, all of the manga is double stacked. So there is, maybe you can see, oops. You can see that there's more manga back there. So every single row is double stacked. But these shelves fit 2 rows really well. So that's basically what we do. We have lots of manga in this room. We do have another 2 bookcases in the loft. And another little kind of small bookcase that has more of our like nonfiction stuff. And then we have a shelf in the closet, which is where we put all our BL and Yuri. Now that I have a couple Yuri titles, I just figured I'll put them together because they're kind of friends. So that's sort of what we do. There's not really a lot of ways that we can organize. As far as how we take care of it, they get dusted. They stay on shelves, they don't leave the house, and they should have all been in this room, which has like blackout blinds and are kind of protected from the sun, but now they've moved a little bit further. We're having to look at whether or not we want to bag them so that they're protected a little bit more from the elements. So we don't do a lot to keep them, because we don't want to be too precious about it. We don't want to raise their status. Yeah, so yeah, we're not super duper precious about them, but we do keep them clean and mostly contained within this room. And also, like in the other room, like the very bottom shelf is left empty because I have rabbits who like to eat books. That is the one few things that they will eat. I have left a couple of things at the bottom row on my kind of like nonfiction shelf, which has my light novels and a couple of nonfiction books that I didn't like, just because I know my rabbit's going to eat them anyway, so I don't really care how they look. What is your favorite genre of manga and why do you like it so much? My favorite genre is historical or history. I think it's just because I have a history background. I'm an art historian and museologist. So I really do love things that are set in history because it is connected to something that I already know a lot about. So that's sort of generally what it is. I also really like history where I don't know a lot about it because then I can go and explore. And history just really defines a people and their attitudes and their beliefs and the things they do and the way they do them and all that stuff. And so I really like to see that captured in manga as well. So I think that's it for this video. I am going to have one more Q&A video coming up. Hopefully you will look forward to it and stick around and watch that one as well. Anyway, thank you so much for everyone for the questions, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye for now.